Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are live. We're continuing our Jane Austen Summer Watchathon, where we watch Jane Austen movies and talk about them. And today it is Persuasion, my personal favorite Jane Austen novel. I know that's always our first question, like, how does this fall for you? It's my favorite. It usurped Pride and Prejudice at a certain point in my 20s because I just related to Anne Elliot way too hard. And I wrote a retelling, kind of. I wrote a remix of Persuasion called The Stars We Steal. I called it a remix because, especially rewatching the adaptations, I was like, oh yeah, I really did change a lot. It's definitely inspired by, but for reasons, Anne Elliot's a very tricky heroine and I had to make changes. I digress. I will let my co-hosts for the day introduce themselves and talk about whether or not Persuasion is special for them, and then we're gonna dive in to two adaptations: the '95 movie, though it's really a TV movie, so we're gonna talk about that, and the 2007 ITV TV movie. We know that one was hard to find, and we apologize if anyone was unable to watch it.
Yes, it was quite difficult. In fact, I wasn't able to actually rewatch it, unfortunately. But which I think might be the case with a lot of people. However, Anyway, I'm Jennieke Cohen, the author of there it is, Dangerous Alliance, and which is a book about for those of you who don't know, is a book about a Jane Austen fan, and there's also a kind of lost love story in it, as well as is the case in Persuasion. So we have today Samantha Hastings with us. Hi, Samantha.
I have two books out. The first one is The Last Word, and it's in 1861. And Lucinda Leavitt's favorite author dies without finishing her serialized novel, so she has to discover who the woman was and how she would have finished the novel. Because those things are really serious.
Very important.
Very serious. And then I'm so excited for The Invention of Sophie Carter. It comes out July 14th. And it's about two sisters who both want to go to London, and only one is invited for the Great Exhibition of 1851. So they pretend to be the same person. And of course they fall in love, but both of the suitors think they're in love with Sophie Carter, which of course is problematic. So that's me. And no, they have absolutely nothing to do with Persuasion. But I love Persuasion, so I'm excited to be here.
All that's required is a love of Persuasion. Don't worry.
I really identify as Anne.
You do? Okay, yeah.
Like anyone who's ever regretted not being more bold in their choices, and I feel like can really, and Cinderella, except for like they're really her sisters, unfortunately.
So where does Persuasion fall for you, Samantha, in your favorite Austens? Because I have a feeling I know.
Pride and Prejudice is my favorite because I fell in love with it when I was 12. I saw Persuasion when I was 13. I saw the 1995 adaptation. Wow, that's how old I am. And I remember the preview saying it's a fairy tale for adults. And I fell in love with it and with her and with second chances and with, it's hard not to feel sorry for Anne. I totally see where you're coming from, Alexa, though. She needs a little more personality and a little more incitingness of herself. So I think that you can make great choices by giving her more movement.
It's just hard in a modern YA adaptation. Like, it's just because you always get the note from your editor, agency, and you're like, this is a character who doesn't have agency. So I had to invent some, and it caused ripples. So poor Anne. It's not her fault, but honestly, it's why we love her. She's so put upon, and I loved how in the 95, like, because I watched them yesterday back to back, so I'd be really fresh. And in the 95, I loved how she literally feels like furniture in so many scenes. She's just like on this. They did a really good job at making you feel that, how insignificant she is to the people around her, even though they like her. And some of them like her. And I thought that was very just apropos because I think that's so relatable in some ways with Anne. It's like she's older, she's invisible, she's there and they depend on her, but they just don't really care. I love the whole, like, you won't, No one will want to see you in Bath. When her sister says that,
yeah,
like,
right.
Dagger in my heart.
I was going to bring this up later, but I feel like Anne's family is just the worst. And
they're terrible.
Like, do they have one redeeming quality? Does one of them have a redeeming quality? I could not come up with one when I was rewatching the movie. I was just like, oh my God.
And in that sense, like, it's almost unbelievable that she could turn out so nice.
Yeah.
I guess the idea is that her mother probably had the greatest hand in raising her because she's older. But at the same time, I'm like, how? Right. How are they all garbage except for you?
She did go to school in Bath, which is how she met Mrs. Smith.
That's true. Yeah.
And she's the second daughter. So she lived with her mom till she was like 12 or 14. So I can't remember which one. Mm-hmm. And then Lady Russell really attached herself to her. And I think Lady Russell, in the movies, they give her a bad rap. In the book, she's not a villain.
She's not a villain. No. She really did mean well when she gave her advice about Wentworth.
She did.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I think there's a little creative license in how awful her family is. Though, in Mary's slight defense, she's just whiny and annoying. Elizabeth is really kind of horrific.
Yeah.
And her dad. So, yeah.
I mean, Mary is, I guess it's difficult because she's like a fake, or she's like, what's the word? She's a hypochondriac, but she's sort of like a fake hypochondriac at the same time. It's like she doesn't actually think, she thinks she always likes to talk about how sick she is. And yet she goes around eating and like.
She doesn't believe it. It's all attention seeking. Everything about her is attention seeking. She's desperate for affection, which, yeah. I have questions about their family, so.
Well, I think what makes Mary unlikable is she is so obsessed with her rank. And she married below herself.
Right.
And so she thinks everyone should just be like thanking Heavenly Father every single day that they have Mary in their family. And they think they don't like her that much.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. No, I don't think any of them like her that much, which is
I love
sad.
That when they all want Anne to tell, just can you give Mary a little nudge?
Right. Can you tell her this? Can you tell her this other thing? Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, and since I watched them back to back, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think it was the 95 one did that especially well, showing it was that montage of everyone using her as a go-between. It was 95. I thought that was brilliantly done. Generally, I feel that 95 feels more like a film, even though it is a TV film. And like one of my criticisms of it, it can't help it. We compare it to Sense and Sensibility, which came out in the same year, and it's like night and day. One is very obviously a big Hollywood movie with a big director and sexy script. And like when you dig into Persuasion, they did release it in cinemas, but it was made to be a TV movie. So I can forgive it that it's a little less flashy, but it still has the language of cinema in a way that it does a very good job showing us Anne's role, what Anne's thinking and feeling, whereas ITV went for the voiceover technique, which I didn't mind, but it's just like different choices.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should ask the audience if anyone has seen both, which one they like the best. I used to really love, and I guess the three of us should say too.
Mary is such a Karen.
Yeah.
May I speak to the manager? Yes.
Right. I thought 1995 is one of my favorites, and I actually have it on DVD and video, which I didn't realize, which means I must have really enjoyed it. And like, I know I've watched it many, many times, but then this time around watching it, I was kind of like, is it as good as I remember? And is it because,
I didn't as well.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was because we had just watched Sense and Sensibility a lot, or if it was just like I wasn't in the mood, or was it just doesn't hold up quite as well overall?
For me, I think it directly following Sense and Sensibility in this Watchathon series did it no favors.
Yeah. Right.
Just to remind yourself that they came out the same year.
Yeah. Right.
And just you see the different in budgets in particular. because I was trying to I felt the same way, and I tried to watch it like a year or so ago and felt that and just kind of set it aside. So this time I was dissecting it. I have no quarrel with the script. I think it was very well adapted. It has to just be that it didn't have the budget and the art, like the direction, to be just a little glossier and to hold up better. I just think it feels very 1995 in a way that Sense and Sensibility does not. So
yeah.
For me, though, I like its grittiness. Sense and Sensibility is so pretty. In especially the 1995 one, their hair is a mess. They're sweaty, they're tired, it feels more real.
Yeah.
Less of the golden.
Jacqueline makes a good note. 95 was a good year.
It was a great year. As if.
Right.
And the Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth.
The mini series was just a big year. And even actually to compare it in that way, this Persuasion, which was BBC funded, compared to the Pride and Prejudice we all know and love, even that felt like it got a lot more put behind it than this in a lot of ways. It felt to me more like a 90s art film than anything else, you know, and which I don't have a problem with, but it's a totally different aesthetic, obviously. And like you said, Samantha, like their hair is messed up in some scenes, and it's not flashy and beautiful. It's not a Hollywood film, and I guess that's part of the comparison issue here, because we just watched. Jacqueline says the costumes were better. I agree. I have some questions about the costumes in the ITV as well as the hair. It's not their fault that Sally Hawkins' hair clearly did not want to curl. Like, her curl just fell right out. It was a whole thing. I think I like the small intimacy of the style. I would agree that is definitely the selling point for the 95, but I think it's also, at least for me, within the canon of all these adaptations we're watching, I definitely came into this live stream, like Jennieke knows this, like my feeling is that we still haven't seen the perfect Persuasion adaptation. That is how I feel. I still want one, because none of them do exactly for me what I want them to, which is a partly me thing. But that's how I feel.
Yeah. Samantha, what do you think about that?
I think I would love another Persuasion. The 2007 one, when I saw it, I just thought it looked so low budget.
Yeah.
And the acting was really painful for me. And though rewatching it, I liked it slightly better, mostly because Frank was in it, Tobias Eaton. Though he's never a nice guy.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You look at him and you go, you're going to be evil, aren't you?
Bad face.
Yeah, it had some good casting. And we've now we've got one more of the ITV ones to talk about next week, Northhanger, but we already dug into Mansfield and how bad it was. They all three of them though had very solid casting, and then from there it wildly varies. So I thought he was well cast, and I also completely agree with Nancy's comment. Rupert Henry Jones is my favorite Wentworth, and is for me the only reason I like the 2007 is him.
Right.
I love him. He's great. He's gorgeous and he's sensitive. I mean, I love all of he's done a ton of BBC-ish things, and I like everything he's ever done, basically. And I would love, if I could only change so many other things about that adaptation, it could have been perfect, except not. So I have so many problems, but we'll talk about that.
We'll get there. Yeah, no, I think he's very good, and it's hard not to like him. And you get those extra scenes, as I recall. There's at least a few with just him. Okay,
I was paying attention. And that's something that we don't usually get in Austen adaptations, period. You usually don't break the POV like that, but it made it, at least for me, it made it feel more romantic in a way. In the 95, I wasn't feeling the romantic tension as much, which again is not their fault, because when I had to adapt the story, which I love, you realize they never really talk to each other.
Yeah.
And it's real hard to get away with that. And so the way that 2007 overcame that is that it showed you his side, a few little scenes, just so you could understand him more as a romantic hero and ship it more. And I liked that, but also because I like looking at him. So
Well, I mean, like, I remember the scene where he's talking to Captain Harville, I think, and they're saying that he's basically compromised Louisa Musgrove, right? And he's like, wait, I'm like honor bound to marry this girl? Like, how do I get out of this?
He's like, wait, what? And and it basically plays up something that is kind of in the book and was less obvious to me, at least in the 95, but that I always felt in the book, that he is being a little bit salty, essentially, and he is flirting maybe a little more than he should because of Anne. And I like that romantic tension. So I like that they called it out and basically slapped him in the face, like, people think you're engaged to this girl, you stupid idiot. You did this. I like that backstory. I like it.
Yeah, no, I thought that was an interesting addition because that aspect is not easy to grasp in 1995, or they kind of gloss over it, to be honest.
But it's very Austen, because it's totally true. If you seem to have an understanding with someone, it's like scandalous for you to like not be a gentleman.
Raise up expectations, hopes. Yeah. One thing I think is really interesting with Persuasion as a book and as a movie is it's the only one where the heroine has no growth arc. She, according to the book, she didn't make a mistake. The only person who has to grow is Wentworth. And I think that's really interesting that they gave him some more time on screen to give us the option, because he does have to grow. He has to realize that he shouldn't hold this against her. And when you're watching it for the first time, for me, I think he's a total jerk, because he knows that she still has feelings for him, and he is rubbing it in her face as hard as he can.
Right. Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, you guys can correct me, but I felt like in the 7, 8, what is it again? Sorry, guys.
7, yeah.
7.
We can call it ITV, yeah.
Okay, ITV. That he's like an angrier Wentworth. Am I correct on that?
He is a little, although I actually thought Kieran Hines was pretty salty as well. And he's actually, I think Rupert Henry Jones, he's angry, but he feels soft because he's so pretty. Whereas Kieran Hines, like, I felt some real aggression there. Like, he got
which
angry.
Scenes?
Oh, it was one of the scenes. Oh, what was he talking about? Oh,
his first posting on a ship, his first captaincy.
Yeah, and like women not being suited to be at sea. I feel like that was really angry. But Henry Jones, what they gave him was they gave him a line that in the 95 is someone else making an observation, his sister. They had him say, "I'm basically single and ready to mingle." And by putting that in his mouth, that definitely made him a bit saucy, which I like the romantic tension. But I can't remember what it's like in the book, but I'm going to assume 2007 took liberties, because I just haven't read the book in like a year and a half.
I was gonna go back and check, but I didn't get a chance. But like, I thought that line in particular, something about "I'm ready for any woman between 15 and 30
who likes the Navy,
who will compliment the Navy." I thought maybe that was in narration in the book. Like,
and in 95 they have Mrs. Croft say it,
right?
I believe.
Or I mean, like, I'm more inclined to think that she would have said that than he would say it in front of everyone at a dinner table.
That is so, like, just the propriety there. I was shocked.
Yeah,
I was like,
I know, me too.
Oh my gosh!
I did watch that clip because I found that clip on YouTube actually of that scene, and I was like, oh, okay, he's saying that to everyone.
But he's a lower class. He's in the Navy. He's not. I mean, Sir Walter says, "You misled me when you called him a gentleman." So he is of a lower class, and so I can see his more liberty and manners. For me, when he really becomes a romantic hero is when he sees Anne struggling on the walk and insists that his sister takes her home. Because before then, he is just a jerk. He is unredeemable in my book. I'm
until that point.
But when he sees her need and helps her, when no one else notices her and no one else cares, that's when he's redeemable again. And then she can like him still.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm behind on comments. I just want to throw up a few. Liked the acting more in 2007. I'll agree there were some of the choices that I did prefer in 2007 as well. And Sally Hawkins, even though I have some issues with her performance, I thought she nailed the final scene after the running. I don't like the running, But then the acting was fine. We'll talk about the running. And I just love this from Jacqueline that the hair was batshit. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. Oh, Anne's hair in the 2007 is horrendous.
It was weird. I have to believe that like they probably couldn't get her hair to curl. I don't know. Which
Did
had to have been
to cut more of it. Like she should have cut more for more
or something.
curls.
It was just like, and her buns were like weird. Jacqueline knows more about hair than I do. So in the comments, like confirm, like the buns seemed wrong. Her hair was in a bun. It was very strange.
And it wasn't attractive.
It was not attractive.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't mean to like interrupt flow. I just hate to get behind on comments, and I do.
I mean, I think we've pointed to this already, but Anne Elliot is like the oldest heroine of any of Jane Austen's heroines, and obviously this is her last finished, completed novel. And a lot of scholars feel like it's like the novel's the most mature of her canon, probably just because it was her last. But yeah, so it's interesting insofar as like we are dealing with a mature heroine, 27, but
Oh, that pains me, but it's so true.
Painfully old, 27.
Oh no, she's 27.
All hope is gone.
Right.
All hope is gone.
She can only play the piano. She does not dance.
But to that end, actually, this is only Anne did her growth in the years before the book, which is completely true. You mentioned that Wentworth is the one who has to grow, which is very odd for a book. I think that's what makes Anne Elliot, I mean, Fanny Price is a similar but separate conversation, but what makes them so odd that exactly Anne grew off the page. And that is, I don't know if we would do that now.
I don't think we would.
No, I don't think we could get away with that. That's, yeah. No, I agree with you guys. Like her arc is very, if it's there at all, it is small. Which is maybe for me, like as I've gotten older, like it used to be my second favorite book after Pride and Prejudice. And like, I feel like as I've gotten older, it's gone down in my ranking just because I can't relate to Anne as much, I guess. And I'm not quite sure why I could when I was young, but like, I feel like less and less am I able to relate to her, which is strange.
Well, with the Cinderella comparison, what does Cinderella do? Nothing. The fairy godmother comes in, gets her all dressed, takes her to the ball. She does dance with the prince, but she doesn't claim the prince. She goes back home and becomes a servant again. And again, they have to come and save her. And so I feel like when you see Anne in that lens, it's a little harder to love her. And so the moments when she does break from that is when she's really more agreeable. Like when she insists on seeing Mrs. Smith, when it has no value for her social standing. And if anything, it will take her down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of an arc. And so like she's able to stand up to her dad and say, I'm going to do this thing I'm committed to do. That's something. Whereas before, she'd probably just sit in the drawing room and be like, oh, okay, I guess I won't do what I want to do.
There's
also sad poetry.
The scene at the concert is also interesting that like she implores him to stay. She's trying. Because up until that point, I mean, the whole thing with Persuasion is that she's so reserved and does so little that he doesn't think that she has feelings for him anymore. And the whole thing is a misunderstanding. And part of that is that, she doesn't do anything. Oh, Anne. Oh, poor Anne.
Yeah, no, I thought that was...
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Samantha, you first.
I like that Captain Wentworth thinks that she's going to marry Mr. Elliot because he needs to feel a little bit of that concern, that tension that he made her feel when she legit thought he was courting another girl right in front of her face. Like, that's harsh. And so I felt like he deserved some of that anxiety, that angst, that unsurety back at him. And I don't like how either movie... I feel like they take away from Anne when they try to simplify Mr. Elliot as a villain. Because in the book, he actually is wealthy and he actually does like her. And in the movie, it almost makes it sound like, well, he just was trying to save his inheritance. He doesn't really like you that much. No one really likes you but Wentworth, so you better stick with him.
Yeah.
Oh, so remind me and people watching, because I can't remember, what exactly is the deal in the book at the end with Mr. Elliot? It's like, it's a very complicated like explanation for why he's courting Anne, right? And I can't remember it off the top of my head.
So, go ahead. Do you want to do it, Alexa?
No, you do it, because I did refresh myself on Wiki, but I have, like, the problem with doing a retelling is that you get your own book mixed in your brain. So I am the worst person to talk about this, because I had to take liberties.
Okay. You did. I'm so glad you did too. In the book, Anne and Mrs. Smith went to school together in Bath. And so when Mrs. Smith married, she knew Mr. Elliot then. And he's like, oh my gosh, the Elliots are the worst. They keep wanting me to marry this chick named Elizabeth. She's horrible. The dad is obsessed with his own appearance. They're the worst. And Mrs. Smith said, oh, but you don't know the little sister. Anne is amazing. She's one of my good friends. You would like her if you knew Anne. And so in the book, he actually brings that tension forth, because he says, I've heard only good things about you. And she's like, she wants to know who had told him those good things. And he doesn't say. And then you find out later that it was Mr. Elliot, that was Mrs. Smith that told her the nice things. But Mr. Elliot was not nice to his first wife, who Mrs. Smith kind of is okay with because she was vulgar, but she was wealthy.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah. And but Mrs. Smith's husband died, and Mr. Elliot didn't help her recover funds that could have. So that's where he becomes the villain right there. He could have helped her, and he should have helped her because she was the wife of his best friend, and his best friend had been very good at sharing money with him before Mr. Elliot married the wealthy woman, who conveniently died. But so then the evil thing is yes, he didn't help Mrs. Smith, and then also he wants to make sure that. So he also does have that angle. He doesn't want Mrs. Clay, who is a social climber, to marry Sir Walter, because now he's wealthy and now he wants family connections. But he really liked Anne. I think he did love her in his own way, but he's a very selfish character.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. That brings it back, because it's so different how they change it in the film to make
none of them know what to do with Mrs. Smith. And neither did I. She's a plot device, and so I love Jane. Obviously, I love our dear Jane, and I love Persuasion because I don't know. I love Anne. I love Wentworth. However, from an author perspective, she took some shortcuts in this book, and Mrs. Smith is a shortcut, and it's like all this stuff that happens off the page,
right?
That is so yeah. She gets points docked for that, even though I love Persuasion. And that's the thing, when you watch the two, you're like, what is the point of this character and her gossipy nurse? Like, why? She doesn't, and especially in the ITV one, they just have her run up to her on the street. I'm like, what happened to her being sick? But they needed her to come and drop all the goss onto Anne.
God, I remember that now.
Yeah, she's literally a plot device. Poor character.
So bad.
Poor Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like you got this Deus Ex Machina character who's just kind of telling you the skinny on this other guy, the rival guy. I don't know. It's
like she got tired and just finished it.
Maybe she did. Maybe it was. Maybe it was like, I mean,
there could have been a deeper third act planned. It's not her strongest third act. Usually there's more scandals in a Jane Austen third act. There's usually and I guess Mr. Elliot's supposed to function in that way, but he doesn't really. I don't know. I still love the book.
It's disappointing compared to Wickham or to
He's very similar to, and actually someone earlier compared hold on, grabbing a comment that kind of fits into this, because we have talked in some of our discussions how Jane would do one character archetype and then explore the same archetype in a different way. Why can't I find it? Someone
he's like a Frank Churchill, more of a Frank Churchill.
I think he's a Collins. Wickham. He's very much a Collins.
That's interesting.
Who's set to inherit the family property because there are no sons, and has his Evie loves the juxtaposition of Anne Elliot to Charlotte Lucas, and I think you can juxtapose Mr. Elliot to Mr. Collins. Similar idea of like keeping the wealth and the title within the family by marrying your cousin, whose estate you're set to inherit. And I guess that happened all the time, and which kind of something I thought that was interesting about ITV. That's definitely a choice, and that this is when I went to Wiki to be like, how long has it been since I read this book? Because like I feel like this is wrong, and like ITV definitely made a choice where in the ITV one they imply that they've lost their house and that Wentworth has to buy it for her.
Okay, yeah.
And
what was that?
That is not. I'm like, but they didn't lose their house. They still have their house. That's not how it works.
It would just go to Mr. Elliot. I was going to bring that up because I remember that annoying the hell out of me.
Even her marrying Wentworth, Mr. Elliot would still get the house. So
right.
that I thought was interesting.
I think that's actually in the book it talks about him buying that Anne gets a beautiful house at the end.
But
so I thought it was a different house.
Yeah, it's a different house.
Is it a different house? Because like I thought it was.
No, I mean in the movie, it seems like it's the same
house.
Like it's Kellynch Hall.
Really? I didn't notice that. Mine wasn't very good.
To double check. I swear to God, it's the same house. Like set wise. I feel like they did not go to another.
Wow, but
and I guess it's just I've seen, even though I have problems with it, I've seen the ITV one like 4 or 5 times because we have nothing else, and like I feel like that's what they're implying, that he gave her wedding present is her home,
her family home, which is not how the entail.
But exactly, it's not
works.
It's not her family home. But it's also just interesting contrast in terms of choices. The 95 one was again more faithful, and not that she ends on a boat in the book, she doesn't. But I liked the idea of her like being a captain's wife and like being on ship, and it was kind of like, oh, nice.
It's like independence, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know the book also ends with some independence for her because I think he buys her.
It's not just us. It's the same house in the ITV. They were too cheap to get another house. It's because they were too cheap. Like at the end of the day, ITV did not have a lot of money. And Samantha, did you watch the other adaptations, the Mansfield one and the Northhanger?
I did. I remember watching it only when they came out, and I thought they were horrible.
They're not good. And but like we've been amused at
Northanger's good. I like Northanger. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
I do like Northanger. Of all of those, that was the only one worth watching.
But like the other ones, they all feel cheap. And it's like, it's fascinating how the different ones use their budgets. And where this one did not use their budget, and I would have been fine with them blowing some money on that, is a better director. Because most of I like watching it again this time, I was like, I need to analyze why I don't like this. In my gut, in my soul, it's the stylistic choices with the gazes at the camera and the running. And I'm like, why?
The heavy breathing annoys me.
I looked up his credits and it's not much. Like he has very few bright spots on his resume. It's not much you've heard of. No, I know that's mean, but like I was like, I feel like he just decided to be real stylistic. This is his shot, and I'm like, no. Every time she looked at the camera, I had to look away from the screen because I felt so much internal cringe. I hated it.
I remember that. I haven't seen it in years, and I remember that.
Also, the eye lines are off throughout the entire movie. Ooh. Just like they have the characters looking in weird directions, and the whole thing made me uncomfortable. I was like, as much as I want Wentworth to gaze at me, not like this. Yeah.
Oh man!
You mentioned the endings, and what I love about the 1995 one, and it's not from the book, is that Anne previously says, "I would love to see Lyme again. I've had seen so few places. Any new place would be of interest." And so for me, I felt like that was a little character arc for her, that she went from only wanting to stay at home, only being the drudge, to I'm going to be a full-on explorer at the end. And I felt like that was such a lovely change.
Yeah, I like that too, and I like all the naval references and sea references.
And costumes. Costumes is better in 95. Like he looks like a naval captain.
Yeah, and I mean, I think technically he shouldn't be wearing his uniform all over the place, but who cares? Honestly, I don't know. That's like taking your historical accuracy a bit far. I think to be like, no, he can never wear his uniform. I don't know. So I'm glad that they did it. But anyway.
Yes, everyone agrees with us. We all hate it. We hate it. We just hate it. It's staring in the camera. It's bad. It's like the director
the running.
He saw Mansfield Park, the one that we like, the 99 one, and thought, ooh, having Fanny talk to the camera. How cool. Except instead of having her talk to us, he just had Sally look. It was so creepy.
So creepy.
So creepy.
Okay. Well, we can talk about the running too, because people have brought that up. Running at the end.
The kiss is so bad.
Oh yeah, the kiss.
It's like a puppy. Her mouth is like, I was like, what do you think a kiss is, Anne? Because I'm real confused. Poor Rupert Henry Jones. I actually watched him this time. He's not doing, he's puckering like a normal person. He's not guppying. And I don't know how he took it. I'm just like, you poor man.
So bad.
Oh my god. And then the heavy breathing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? What did he think?
Why was she running so much?
She should not be running all over Bath, all by herself. Like, it's ridiculous.
But also, I'm concerned about Sally's like gait. I'm like, I feel like you have a problem. Her walking gait was off too. I feel like she had like a chiropractic issue because she's not a good runner. Like, I'm concerned that she's got like a misalignment in her hips or something. It was awkward to watch. I hated it. I hated everything about it. I like this we can say a nice thing about 2007 because I liked this as well. The foreshadowing with Louisa jumping off things, I noticed that as well.
Oh, okay.
I liked that. I didn't like.
They do that in 95 too, actually.
Yeah.
They have her jumping off the stile, I thought, unless I'm going crazy. But
they did. I actually thought the setup on the steps was better in 95 because they show them coming down. They show that it's precarious. And she, like, I liked that sequence there. She does it twice. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But I did not like in 2007, like, as a romance fan, I like the idea of it. And the execution was terrible, where she dramatically falls. And the music swells, and there's like a fade white where like Wentworth appears above her. It was so cheesy. I'm like, I should love this, and I hate every second of this.
Wait, is that when Anne falls? Or
Anne
when...
falls, and it's just it's the way the direction again. It's the direction and the editing. I hated it. I was like, I'm so embarrassed right now.
I remember really disliking that they had her fall and have him like coming over.
Slow-mo too. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, no, it's not good. But no, and then we can talk about Louisa's fall too, because it's that's a good emoji.
Her mouth is open the whole time.
The whole time. Yeah, the kiss was terrible. It's all terrible. I hate it.
Right. I mean, and it's so sad that because that movie could have been good, or that show could have been good, and like he's good for the most part, but yeah, in general.
This is a hot take I actually also agree with. I didn't think the kiss was great in 95 either.
It's not great.
A low bar though compared to 2007.
I think my thing with 95, even though I still enjoy it, there's something about Amanda Root and Ciarán Hinds. There's like a missing chemistry for me. And it could be a hindsight thing because I feel I'm the same as you, Jennieke. I used to love that movie.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel the same anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because I've seen it so many times, but when I watched it the other night, I did feel like it was less swoony for me.
Magic is gone in a weird way for me, at least.
I don't know. So I guess we need a new one, as you said. But but I do still really like a lot of things about the 1995 one. I like that we've got like all the candle light seems totally real. Like there's all the scenes that are in the evening. It's like it's dark. They've got candles, but it's dark, and you're like, oh my god, can you it's hard to imagine living in a time like that where if you had to, if you needed to be playing cards at night in a room with a bunch of people, like there would have been beeswax candles all over the place, and like you probably couldn't have seen your cards that well, quite honestly, unless they were rich.
They would, they didn't live long, so they probably departed before they needed glasses. Just, Jane Austen always reminds me that I'm an old maid. So if not literally, but if I lived in Jane Austen's time, it's just, I think that's so weird. Anytime I like 27's not old, and Anne is considered so old.
That any chance of her getting married is passed by. She's not going to.
Yeah. Man. Oh, so we have, Jacqueline has a thing about the running. I agree, like logistically, which actually brings up a change that 2007 made that I thought was, I don't hate it, but it's interesting. And that is that 2007 completely changes the conversation between Anne and, well, they make it between Anne and Benwick instead of between Anne and, what's his name? I'm blanking on his
Captain Harville.
Thank you, Harville. They change it and they move the position. They change it to a dinner party early on where Wentworth cannot overhear her conversation. Oh yeah, in 2007 they move it completely. It's in an earlier act of the movie. Okay. And he can't hear her. The camera literally cuts to him talking to someone else. So he didn't hear that entire conversation where she says that he says women are fickle and that poetry disagrees. And she says, well, it was written by men, and then says women love longest when all hope is gone. Whereas in 95, as in the novel, it happens in the third act and Wentworth overhears it. And it's the entire reason he realizes that she might still love him. 2007 just totally changes it. And I don't hate it in 2007, but I'm also kind of like, what a choice. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. I think that the most romantic part of that whole movie, the reason why we read that darn book, is because of that letter.
It's so good.
Half agony, half hope.
Yeah.
Say not that a man, that his love is not possible. I mean, it's so passionate, so beautiful. You're like, I've been waiting for this.
Yeah,
so it's unfortunate they didn't use more of it, or
it basically 2007 removes the concrete reason for him to write the letter. Like, we don't get that anymore, which is just interesting.
And his response to her conversation. Interestingly, in the book, it's actually Captain Harville who said, "But you'll probably say they're all written by men." Anne does not say that, but in the book, she says, "The pen has been in your hands." And I feel like that's where you get the feminism that you want from Jane Austen right there, is you see Anne says, we haven't been able to tell any stories. So of course, we only have your perspective.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, I think 2007 cribbed from 95, which is really interesting.
Oh, like change the interesting. Yeah.
The line delivery is almost identical between the two. Since I watched them back to back, it's like really fresh. I like this comment. Zero chemistry between Anne and Wentworth in 2007. I do feel like they were in two different movies, but he was in a movie I liked, and he was emoting, and I love him, but you're also right. So yeah, just imagine yourself as Anne instead of Sally, and you're not being creepy. I'm sorry, I really like Rupert Henry Jones. I hope it's not creepy. I just love him, and I based my Wentworth on him because he's so delightful. He's so British.
Beautiful.
So beautiful, so British. It's like he was acting his pants off. And Sally Hawkins was also acting a lot, but I feel like they weren't acting together all the time.
Yeah.
Especially in that kissing scene. I feel like he wished he wasn't there. I feel like we didn't get a reverse because they couldn't use it. He probably looked horrified. She was the mouth. It was so weird.
And they should have just used him then, not used her.
I know.
Like,
and I was
like, what kind of
Austen heroine is going for an open mouth kiss for her first kiss? That's what Sally was doing, and I'm like, that is very forward. And I don't feel about that.
So true. Very forward.
Choices.
Well, they might have. I mean, let's be. If we want to extrapolate, we could imagine that they might have kissed before when they were engaged originally.
Okay, that's true.
It's been like 8 or 9 years. I mean, you'd be a little rusty.
I still think it's scandalous that they
that's the open mouth.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, of course it's scandalous.
I know, it's like you were on the street.
But in both of them, they're on the street.
I was a little scandalized, which you've internalized Austen too much, where you're like clutching your pearls. You're like, oh my god. I mean, of course, that was me with the 2007 Mansfield with the necklines. I was just deeply scandalized. I was like, there's a lot of boob happening right now. So Austen would not approve.
Well, like Jacqueline said, that was actually accurate. At least that part.
On some women, not all.
Okay.
Remember.
Okay.
It was inappropriate for Fanny, and I stand by that. So.
Okay.
For Fanny's personality, for sure. She was so conservative. Yeah. She's so boring and good. Bless her.
Poor Fanny.
Oh,
yes.
This is.
One thing I don't know if I love about the 1995 one is the music. It has Chopin's Preludes, and it's just so regret, so much regret, so much remorse. Just the beauty of the music. And I don't know if you talked about this with Sense and Sensibility. I watched, so I should remember. But Patrick Doyle's music really elevated Sense and Sensibility.
I love his score.
Yeah, me too. We did talk about it.
I mean,
that's my favorite.
Yeah, the thing with the films, any of the Hollywood ones, they had the budget to get these amazing composers. And so I want to know if I'm insane. Like, I was watching ITV Persuasion. I swear to God, they used music from the 1999 Mansfield Park more than once. Like, and I don't know whether they licensed it or whether it's music that is public domain music that was also used in 99, but it was distracting. They used one of the pieces where, the one where Fanny's being yelled at by Sir Robert about refusing the engagement. That like distressed piano music is in the ITV Persuasion. They use that piano music in the scene where they're walking across the field and she falls. And I was just really taken out of it. I was like, why? It's like they tried to borrow music from a better film. Anyway.
That's really weird. I can't speak to that since I didn't get a chance to rewatch it. But
so they either licensed it or that piece of music from Mansfield was not an original composition and they licensed it. Anyway, It was distracting. So I love that Joanne actually did what I did not and reread Persuasion. Thank you. Oh. This is really interesting. That is not in the books, and both of the movies use it. That Wentworth delivers a message from his sister. Again, I think the 2007 screenwriter watched 95 and just copied its structure, which I don't disagree with. 95 had a good screenplay.
I think we needed the tension. We need to know that Wentworth thought that she was super serious about marrying Mr. Elliot because they haven't even talked yet.
Yeah.
And so I felt like it was a useful device.
It's a good scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it forces them to confront each other. And Anne's not willing to, she doesn't actually deny it. She said, why does everyone always say that I'm going to marry him?
Yeah.
She doesn't say, I'm not going to marry him.
And, again, I love my girl Jane, but I do feel that in modern storytelling, we do have these sorts of story devices that are more active. And so that was the way that the adaptations, like, kind of
just felt like they had to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I think there's only so much you can rely on internal narration.
Sure.
And I feel like in a book, obviously, it's a little different because you're in the main character's perspective and you can forgive it not having those scenes. So.
Right. Yeah, no, that scene, I actually did write down a note about it because I was like, why? I was like, is that in the book? And I didn't remember if it was. Interesting. Okay.
I love that.
But in the movie, I thought it gave Wentworth a moment to confront Lady Russell for a second, and like, which is kind of nice because she did screw up his life in some respects, or her influence did.
Though in the book, he says, after I made a few £1,000, if I would have written to you 2 years later, would you have accepted me? And she says yes. So in the book, he has no redemption that way. Like if he would have given her a second, if he hadn't been so prideful, he should have been pride. If he hadn't been so prideful, he could have had Anne years before.
Yeah.
But he was just going to hold his anger and his resentment.
But I understand his anger and resentment at the same time. Even though Anne's my homegirl, I'm kind of like, I mean, it was a little shallow. I know why you did it, but
yeah,
then again, I don't know. But he's still a jerk.
It's interesting.
Well, and Anne, the weird thing is Anne decides that she was right to listen to the advice, but she wouldn't have taken it again. Which is a funny thing where, like, yes, I was right, but I wish I hadn't have done it.
I mean, in fairness, she was right for the time, but I also think that he has a right to be upset. I think they're both right. Yay, nuance. Well, because that would wound me as well. That like you're not good enough. You're not good enough, so I won't marry you. Oh God, how awful!
It wasn't good. It was money.
It was money. It's all about class. So
well, and I think it's easy for us to be like, well, she should, but she can't make her own money. If they're poor, they could be poor forever.
Yeah,
like it could have been disastrous for her.
Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
So the alternative is living with her father and her sisters,
which is the worst.
which is terrible. Too. They're awful.
Probably would have been better off with him, even had they been poor. But I mean, that's a semantic argument that we could, or a hypothetical argument that we could probably talk about for a while.
Yeah, it's not shallow in the context of the period. That's definitely a modern lens that I.
That's
have,
true. So,
but I still think he can be mad. He's allowed to be mad.
He's allowed. Yeah.
But he shouldn't have flirted with the Musgroves. That was unacceptable.
No, they were so silly. If he ended up with one of those girls, he would want to shoot himself every morning before breakfast from their giggling.
Yeah.
And then Anne would have married Benwick, which I thought was an interesting character.
Yeah.
That they actually sometimes they kind of hint that Benwick liked her, liked Anne. And that's and then of course he marries Louisa, which is convenient. I almost wish that Louisa would have come back into play and Benwick and had a showdown.
Yeah, I feel like if it were a modern novel, that's exactly what would have happened. It's a fascinating in going over these, like, although that said, Pride and Prejudice is a modern novel, not so like sometimes Jane nailed it or maybe even created the modern novel. And sometimes, even though I love Persuasion, this is not changing my feelings. I recognize the faults.
Right.
Passive heroine, very passive storyline, but it's a feelings book. And I think that's why I like it. But feelings do not translate well to screen.
That's right.
So I don't mind most of the changes that they had to make to adapt it. So.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole book, I feel, and even something I got from 95 movie is that everything's about regret. And like everyone's got regrets about something.
Yeah.
Even, the secondary characters have regrets unless they have no awareness, like Anne's family. But, or like Charles, what's his name? Charles Musgrove. He's probably regretting marrying Mary, Well,
I found him interesting in 95 because I feel you could see the warmness between him and Anne, whereas they didn't bother with that in 2007. And I actually thought that was a very interesting character dimension where you feel he's a more rounded character in 95 and you feel his regret.
Right.
That
he wanted to marry Anne.
He wanted to marry Anne.
She wasn't really into it. Yeah. But, they're clearly friends. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I was going to also say that one thing I thought, rewatching it, I was thinking there aren't as many like delightful secondary characters in this one. I don't know how you guys feel, but I couldn't, there wasn't anyone that I could really point to that I was like, oh, I love that character. They're great.
I think that's
funny ones. And Jane's mean as ever because she calls Mrs. Musgrove, described her as large, as fat size. So I mean, Jane is just, her pen is as sharp as ever when she's making fun of people.
But Persuasion, we call it her mature novel. It's her feelings novel. You're not wrong. There aren't as many delightful side characters, but it's the sharpness. There's plenty of kind of blunt edged. That's not a thing. You know what I mean? Sharp edged. In that one, it's definitely she's throwing hands. She's making statements.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and Lady Russell is delightful in the book.
Yeah.
Is she?
And
okay.
She's a true friend to Anne. And in the end, she says, I was completely wrong. Now I'm just going to have to love Captain Wentworth and you. And that's fine because I love you more than I like being right. And I think that's a really powerful character arc that we don't ever see in the movie. Because in the end, especially in 95, she almost puts more pressure. Now you need to marry Mr. Elliot. And she has villain Phil in that movie. And in the book, she really does has Anne's best interest at heart and is willing to change when she finds out she's wrong.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that
So
she's
she is
more rounded in the book. I can't remember. I didn't remember that for some reason.
I'm a bad fan. It's been too long. Anyway.
Yeah, I need to reread Persuasion.
It was my comfort read for a long time, and then when I went to adapt it, I didn't want to read too close. It was a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So good though. Feelings.
Let's see. Oh, can we talk about the jump off of? I know we kind of mentioned it, but when Louisa jumps and falls, and basically falls into a coma for a day,
I still don't understand the physics of it, and neither film demonstrated the physics particularly well. They both went for a dramatic slow-mo close-up for some reason, followed by a because you don't want to actually throw an actress off of a cliff, followed by just oh look, she's out cold, and just like that. Yeah.
That's a bad fall.
He didn't even try to catch her. And also, why would she land that way? She probably would have broken her legs anyway.
Yeah, I don't really get that either.
It's a whole thing.
I remember in the book, it's kind of it's like she kind of glosses over it too, right?
It's very vague.
Yeah,
I mean,
but also it's a weird thing for Louisa.
Scenes weren't her strength.
Yes.
It's not most of our strengths, so it's okay.
Well, Louisa, in the book, they say that she's been educated and she's more modern. And I feel like in the movies, they kind of want her, they want us to think she's stupid or less delightful because we want to love Anne. I just don't, it seems so out of character for Louisa to jump off that. I mean, unless it's a plot device where you're proving that sometimes always being firm is a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean,
but
I think
otherwise,
that's the point,
she's not stupid the rest of the time. It seems like a really weird thing to do, especially when he's not willing to catch her.
It is a weird thing to do, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump off this really, really high place, and you can't reach me yet, but I'm jumping anyway.
Well, and then
I guess
think
it's
people
meant
are
to be romantic.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Someone's commenting, the family screaming at the house is hilarious. Yeah, I agree. I thought that was
it was better
hilarious.
In 95. That was good. That was well done. In general, the Musgroves are better illustrated in the 95 than they are in the 2007. It all looks so awkward. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and then his reaction in 95, his reaction is so overblown.
I would agree with this as well. Slipping instead of jumping would have made more sense.
Yeah. That's kind of true. I mean, and he's just don't be so foolish, and he freaks out and runs. And you're but how did you not catch her after that?
That's Karen Hines going hard. Where I was he's very sharp in that one. And generally, it's kind of again, my beloved Jane, it definitely feels like she needed a plot device. The whole function of that scene is that he sees Anne being level-headed, clear-headed, and dependable, and it's something he loves about her. But yeah, in order to facilitate that, Louise has got to throw herself off of a cliff? I don't know. Choices. Yeah. She's lucky she didn't die.
Seriously, if you're concussed and out for that long in that time period, you probably had some I mean, even now you'd have brain damage, but can you imagine back then with doctors who can't do anything? Good God.
They'll bleed you.
Yeah, they'll bleed you while you're concussed. Can you imagine?
I'm sure that will help.
Yeah. Bad. Anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think Sophie Thompson is amazing character actor. I love her as Miss Bates and Emma, and I think she nailed it as Mary Musgrove Mary Elliot Musgrove.
Between her and in this and the 96 Emma, I'm very good. Yeah.
I mean, she is just her comedic timing is perfect.
Yeah.
I'm so ill. Huge slice of ham.
Yes. Yes.
She is just hilarious.
I like this. The book did mention lingering damage on her nerves.
I don't know how they would know that though. I mean, I feel like that's 19th century doctoring.
It's anxiety as well, because Mrs. Bennet always said that she had her nerves. So it's probably just being a little ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder. I would think there would be some lingering effects, probably, just because knowing what we know about how brain damage works a bit. But obviously, they didn't know that then. Right? I mean, maybe they had an inkling, but
In the book, all they say is that Benwick will whisper things in her ear when she gets upset with loud noises. So it sounds like there is more of a problem.
Like PTSD.
Than is mentioned. Is given. I mean, the movie, she's just gone.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we don't deal with her again.
She's competition. Movies. She jumps. She's gone.
Yeah. Right. She's very nicely handled. Bye.
We're tired of you.
Yeah.
Go away.
Can we talk about the Viscountess, the Dowager Lady Dalrymple in 1995?
And the Honorable Miss Carteret.
Yes, and the Honorable Miss Carteret. Just like when they get introduced to them, it's just such a scene. I always kind of laugh at the ridiculousness of it all because they're all so obsessed with her because she's a Viscountess. But, and then when you see her, you're like, oh, okay. Interesting.
She's no one special.
No.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing the book really does strongly is it shows that people of rank are idiots and that people in the Navy or lower class are actually better people, smarter, more capable.
Right.
And Mr. Elliot says to Anne, Anne says, my idea of good company is well-informed people with a great deal of conversation. And obviously, Lady Dalrymple and the Honorable Miss Carteret are not intelligent in any way, shape, or form. They're almost comedic in the movies.
Yeah.
Comedically stupid.
Yeah. Well, and of course, then her father and sister falling over themselves to impress. Oh,
yeah.
I will say one of my favorite things in 2007 is Anthony Stewart Head, who acts the heck out of that role. He does that kind of simpering thing very, very well, and I like the contrast. There.
Yeah, it's an interesting. That was good casting for sure.
I think Sir Walter is one of the great comedic characters that she wrote, and we don't. I mean, I love how the Admiral mentions that he had to take down some of the mirrors because the house had way too many mirrors.
Yeah,
right.
And those are funny.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I do like Admiral Croft. I think, and I like him in the movie. It's an interesting another. These guys are down to earth and they deal with. They deal with these other, stuff that's not just every day. Like everyone else in England, they go out and they fight wars and and they're totally down to earth. And it's interesting. I mean, I know Jane Austen had at least one brother in the Navy, right? Two?
Yeah.
That were in the Navy.
So there you go. And it makes total sense. Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about, guys?
We talked about the running. We talked about the heavy breathing, the direct camera addresses. I would just love to see another Persuasion, just because 95 is perfect for what it is, all things considered. But I want something fresh and new, and I want perfect casting and good direction, and I think that it is possible to take a feelings book and make it a feelings adaptation, and I still feel like I haven't gotten what I want. I don't know.
I would love if they did to Persuasion what they did to the 1999 Mansfield Park. If they made Anne a more active character, because I feel like I could root for her more. Now, when I was younger, I didn't really care, but now I'm just like, oh, honey, suck it up and do something with yourself.
Yeah. To just give her a fresher perspective, or to do what they do with Fanny, exactly. Give her a little bit more of Jane in the sense that, it'd be interesting if Anne, ever made an observation about any of this.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, to have a heroine who just sits there for most of the book or for most of the movie. And I do think Amanda Root does a very good job of it, actually. I don't think we've talked about her yet, but not specifically.
Yeah.
But her performance, I feel she's hitting all the beats and it's not overblown and it's not.
She had a few moments where she looked real shook, where I was like, that's super obvious and people can see you. And then Sally Hawkins took it to a whole other level of people can see you reacting the way you're reacting and they're going to ask you if you're okay. Whereas it's implied that Anne keeps everything inside and does not react, obviously, in terms of her distress. I know it's a movie, but still.
Right, they have to show, yeah. I mean, I feel like they have to show a little, and obviously less than Sally Hawkins, but like, it's a tough balance.
When she grabs the chair, I feel like that was a good move.
That was nice.
You see that she's still upright, but she's grabbing the chair for support. I thought that was a nice little nuance.
We have a question if we've talked about the people at the age of the actors in 95. They were, both of them, he was a little old, all things considered, but she was like 30, 31, which I thought was pretty respectably bang on, more or less.
Yeah.
Because the problem is, and I think we talked about this with one of the other adaptations, where it's this line between like how to get the modern audience to understand that someone's an old maid when they're 27. I think it was that how it was interesting. We were comparing Mrs. Bates's, which Sophie Thompson actually. She's very young in the 96 Emma, but that's almost like could be true. Whereas in other ones, they went with much older actresses to try to like really say like this character is so far past her prime compared to the 20-year-old. But yeah, it's tough. It is definitely tough as a modern audience because it's like, wait, 27 is not old. What is happening? I'm so confused.
Exactly.
But if they'd actually cast a 27-year-old actress, it'd be like, huh? So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so Joanne is saying he was in his 40s. Apparently,
he was born in 1953. Like quick math. So yeah, he was 42. Oh, wow. But Amanda Root, I think, was 10 years younger than him.
She was.
I think she was born in 1963. So. Let's see.
Interesting.
Ooh, would you prefer a miniseries or a movie? I think generally right now, although Jennieke, you didn't like the new Emma, but I did. Like until the new Emma, I would have said miniseries because I feel like Hollywood doesn't know what to do with a period adaptation anymore. There was a period where they did a ton of them. And some of them are very good, and we've talked about them. And I feel like Hollywood doesn't do that anymore. And actually, that's the thing. I don't think they do them unless they're really radical, like the new Emma. So I don't know. I want to say miniseries just because when the BBC actually spends money, I think they make the best adaptations when they're not being cheap.
Right. So, yeah, I would be happy with either, quite honestly. Whatever they could make happen. But
I think it would be interesting for Persuasion to get a mini because then maybe they could flesh out some of the side stuff. Like they could invent more for Miss Smith. And I feel like there's so much potential in terms of exploring Bath as a place, and there's not enough time when you do Persuasion in an hour and 40 to do that. It was such a big place for Jane Austen, and this is the only book where we really get to be there, and then we don't get much of it. So
I would pick a movie because I feel like the character arcs usually go better. So, I mean, I guess it depends on how well the series is done. The book is really short compared to the other one. Short. And so I feel like I just don't want it to get the Sanditon treatment.
Yes,
where they add so much of their own, and you're like,
I still haven't watched it because Jennieke hated it so much that I haven't done it yet. But maybe we should.
A lot of people like it,
I don't know.
But
okay.
I mean, a lot of people have liked it. I'm not one of those people. And I think, Samantha, you felt the same as I did. Right?
I did. I just also feel like if you really love Jane Austen, it's hard when they make too much of an adaptation change, which why in the Mansfield Park 1989, it was Jane Austen's own letters, which made it fantastic and gave Fanny so much personality and so fun. So I would be scared if they did too much with Persuasion because there's just not that much storyline there.
Yeah.
And they added things I didn't like.
This is a good comment about age-appropriate actors, that they don't feel old enough. And I agree. Because, like, although, can you ever really win? I mean, we were just talking about Alan Rickman and Kate Winslet last week, where it's just like, whew. Yeah, they were technically age-appropriate, kind of, almost, and it was yucky. So, for me.
Yeah. No, it's tough. I don't know. It's very tough, the aging of actors versus, and it's sort of like, I think it depends on the director, what they're going for, and like, I just prefer that the characters have some chemistry, or the actors have some chemistry.
Yeah.
That's really, for me, like the bigger problem.
Yeah.
Which we do, you know.
Yeah, I definitely.
Jane Austen Regrets, Miss Austen Regrets.
Yeah.
I feel like they do a good job of that. I think if they did something like that with Persuasion, it could be very successful, because in that, Jane Austen is full of regrets.
Yeah.
And yet she's still a very funny, fascinating character that you still can cheer for, even if she is full of regret.
Well, I guess it's almost like maybe someone could do something meta, because Persuasion feels very autobiographical more than any other Austen. And Miss Austen Regrets it actually gives me a lot of the feels that I want from Persuasion, actually, for that reason. Because and Persuasion hints, obviously, she said no to Charles Musgrove. And that's very similar to when Jane Austen turned down a proposal. Right. And I think that maybe what they could do with Persuasion is you could have more of the backstory of when Anne actually just do a complete one. Show me the romance when they're young, and then show me the later. I don't know, but that would be cool, much, right?
I would like the 2 time periods. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't have to go crazy on the stuff that's on the early stuff, but that would be interesting to see them when they were younger, I think.
So the New Little Women, I took my kids, bless their hearts, and they had a hard time following the story. And I felt like the new Emma was the same way, because it bounced back and forth, and it made it really hard if you didn't already know the story going in, what was going on. Right. I knew what was going on because
Yeah, because the same thing, I knew what was going on. So, yeah.
But Persuasion, if you showed the flashbacks, I think that could actually be very effective. Seeing them and now.
Well, and it would solve the problem of Anne technically not growing during the story. That all her growth is in the past. Because, like, you can imagine between 19 and 27, she indeed lived some life and had some regrets and came to this place where when he shows up again, I mean, she's ready for him in the sense that she's ready to do nothing. But, I love her, but she does nothing anyway. This is a good suggestion. Theo James.
Oh, that's because he's in Sanditon. Yeah.
No. Well, at least you're gonna see him naked. Bringing him up, someone asked about casting. I'm so bad at casting, but Theo James could be very interesting casting. He'd be interesting for Persuasion. He'd be a very interesting Mr. Elliot, actually.
Okay, I could get behind that.
Because honestly, I am shallow with Persuasion. Just cast a bunch of hot people. I won't lie. Like, that's all I need.
That's all you want.
I'm a terrible person. It's fine. Anyway. Well, I want them to be romantic heroes. And
that's okay. I mean, that's why that's why we read these, I feel.
I just really like this comment. Can I pull it up? No, I can't.
Which one?
She Learns Romance comment.
Which one?
But the last
She Learns Romance. But I think that is true, because it says in the book, Anne learned prudence in her youth and romance as she grew older. So I like that.
Go. Yeah.
If only she had talked to him more.
What if they don't like each other now?
Right? Just have a conversation. I like this question, this thought experiment. Would Persuasion work better as an adaptation that is not period, like Clueless?
I was trying to figure out if there had been one done that, I don't think so.
And as someone who's done this, I will tell you it's almost impossible to update Persuasion without changing it, because she's such a passive heroine. It's really hard. Whereas Clueless, Emma's not a passive character. She's actually very modern. And that's why I think she worked so well in Clueless. They barely had to change Emma to do Clueless. Same thing with, we've seen plenty of good modern adaptations of Pride and Prejudice as well, because you don't actually have to change Lizzie and Darcy that much. They really work. I think that's why we have such heated conversations about Mansfield and Persuasion. And there are people who really hate both of those because of the passivity of the heroines. And and also, just to be a little salty about a book I love, if you actually look at Persuasion, does Wentworth have a personality? That is my challenge for you, because he doesn't. Like, and when you actually have to write him meaning, because they don't speak to each other. So you don't know, does he have hobbies? I don't know. What's he into other than the Navy? I don't know. What are his wants and needs? And when you actually have two characters speak to each other, which I don't think you can do a modern adaptation of Persuasion without them speaking to each other. And then is it persuasion? Is the question.
Right.
And so you have to actually give him goals and wants and needs. I personally, like, not that I'm like the end all be all, but very few people have tried to adapt Persuasion. It was really hard. Most of my editing was realizing that copying Persuasion wasn't working, and I had to throw out things that I'd done because they did, like, I got notes about character agency issues was the first major pass I did was, she has no agency. I'm like, well, go figure. Poor Anne. And Wentworth is really hard. Like, actually making him a balanced at least obviously I did YA, but if you did adult romance, it'd be the same. To have him be balanced and have him, like, have interests and wants and goals and needs other than showing up to visit a sister, like,
and flirting with girls.
Like, it's hard.
Well, I think he would have to have a job. He'd have to have a job.
And that's the thing. I didn't even do modern. I did sci-fi.
Right.
Like, but exactly, modern, you'd have to give him a job. You'd actually have to give her a job or at least something to do.
Sure.
Because that's how modern society works. I don't man, now we got to think about this.
Our YA contemporary version.
I did actually soon. I have a full synopsis for that. I wrote it years ago, but then I changed my mind and I wrote a sci-fi version instead. So now I can't do a modern one, but I did. And it was hard. I did change things. Wow. He was going to be captain of the lacrosse team, though. It was going to be so cute. Anyway.
Oh, that's cute. That's a good idea.
As long as he's the captain.
He's captain. But no, it's really hard because it's kind of like the easiest part of it to do, though, is I asked you to marry me and you broke my heart because of money. Though that's the easiest to translate, but other parts of it are a lot harder. So that said, I would love for someone who was not me to try because I would watch that. So.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh, this is Joanne's also correct. The challenge is adapting the old maid idea. Yeah, it's harder.
Yeah.
You'd have to wrestle with also, and this is maybe why it could be interesting, new ideas of feminism and aging women and romance and marriage and second chances. You'd have to explore it in a different way. So
Mr. Elliot could be like 20 and she could be 30 this time.
Right? He's a young thing and she's a cougar. No, that's horrible. Don't date children. Yeah. Even when you reverse the genders, I don't agree.
That's weird. What does Jacqueline say? But Anne can be arced in a modern adaptation. Yeah, I was just reading Jacqueline's comment there.
Here. Yeah. I feel like it could work in a literary novel. I feel like literary fiction has a lot more wiggle room for a character who doesn't have a breakneck, like, propulsive plot that they have to, like, do something for. So, like, commercial, I think you would struggle with commercial fiction without making changes that'll piss off diehard fans.
There is this last Charmaine's comment. There's that one that just came out by Sonali Dev. I haven't read it yet, though.
Oh. Cool.
Yeah.
See, I want people to do this. I'm into it. It's just hard. And the thing is, I personally am not, like, psycho about adaptations. I don't mind changes, but some fans, like, don't want you to change your Austen at all, or they lose their minds. And that's, like, no offense. Like, it's cool. But, like, this isn't about me, but I did adapt Persuasion. And one thing that I have read of my own reviews is that they talk to each other too much. And then it doesn't work because they talk to each other. I'm like, you're not wrong. You have the same, like, oh, she doesn't like me, he doesn't like me misunderstanding if you actually interact with each other like normal humans. So
Yeah.
I had to invent more misunderstandings that made it a lot more soapy. I have no regrets. It's fine.
No, I mean, I felt like your book, although you had to come up with ways for them to talk more, like, I don't think it makes it less Persuasion because it's being translated into sci-fi, guys. So
it's also I'm like inspired by. The romance arc is 100% crib for Persuasion, obviously, but I had to change characters. There's a whole plot that doesn't exist in Persuasion because it didn't need to, because it's different genre. So anyway, I love it. I want more adaptations, more movies, more books.
What were you saying, Samantha?
I like to do things differently in adaptations. Like when I read a fairy tale retelling, if it's the same dang story again, it's so boring. But it's the new things that they bring to a story that I love, which makes it fun for me.
Reunion idea. That reminds me of that movie with Anne Hathaway and the hot British guy, though. It's got a similar vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Someday, every day, one day. I think that's what it was called.
Okay.
I saw it.
Yeah, well, because it's basically like they almost were in college, but then they weren't, and then they see each other on the same day every year. And anyway.
Right.
Anyway.
I remember the premise. Yes.
Well, and that's the thing. I feel like, obviously, I doubt Jane Austen invented this, but who knows? She could have, because she's amazing. But like, I feel like there is a genre of romance, which is the one that got away fiction, that is so Persuasion. Second chance love is so Persuasion. So I feel like there's echoes of Persuasion in everything. So.
It's a powerful trope.
It's a great trope. But the thing, and that's the thing, like, for me, there's a thin line between like using the trope and what's actually a Persuasion retelling, and that's where it gets a little bit foggy. So.
Right. Well, I mean, have we talked about everything? I mean, is there any other questions? I mean, I feel like we've all kind of said that we enjoy, as far as Wentworths go, we like Rupert Penry Jones, but we also like Ciarán Hinds to some extent. Yes.
I prefer him as Rochester. He was a decent Rochester.
Yeah, I thought so too.
He did a Jane Eyre, so yeah. I love how they're creating a story in the comments, and I fully support all of you to write this modern adaptation.
Yeah, you guys should do it. That's great.
Do it.
And do it through comments.
Right?
That'd be funny.
I mean, how would you incorporate social media into Persuasion is an interesting idea. So, like, you'd have like Louisa posting Instagram photos of her and Wentworth.
Right? And then Anne would be sitting there on her phone like,
scrolling.
There they go again to down the road.
Oh no, that's the most horrific idea. Oh my god, they'd be the Kardashians.
Oh god.
Her family would be the Kardashians.
Oh.
It would be about social status and
she's like the only normal one.
Without an Instagram account.
Right. I like that. That's good.
Sorry, this is horrible. Oh my god, I just ruined myself. It's fine. Okay. Well, that's how someone could do it, and I do not want to write a book about the Kardashians. So
yeah, same. Yeah. So you guys take those ideas, because I think those are good starting points.
Right? Let's do it. Yeah. She's the normal child who's not an influencer, who went to college and got a normal job.
Yeah. No, I think that's perfect. So next week, thank you guys, everybody, for being here, because we quite enjoy doing these, and rewatching Austen, obviously, is our jam. So thank you guys. Thank you, Samantha, for being here this week, of course. And let's see. Okay, next week we are doing Northanger Abbey with Kathy McMillan. We're only doing a week in between, so we'll be here next Saturday, the 27th, right? Yes. And then same time, same place, pretty much.
And I realized that Northanger is also set in Bath, but as you know, Jennieke, I haven't read that book since I was like 16. But still, even that one doesn't utilize Bath to the greatest. And we've only had one adaptation of Northanger, which you can watch on, was it Masterpiece, I think is where that one is?
I believe it is there, yes. Well, actually, technically there are two adaptations, but we are not watching the one from the 80s, because
we're actually only doing, for once,
I don't like it.
We actually like the ITV one, So we're just doing that one. So, but
The
we are going to talk about
is strange.
So what we're going to talk about is the weirdness of the fact that there's only one real Northanger Abbey adaptation, because it's quite strange given how popular Jane Austen is. So, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I feel like these two have gotten short shrift. I mean, I like the 95 version.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Mansfield Park too, you could say to some extent, obviously.
But everything, like the 99 movie made up for everything. It's just so good.
It did.
Yeah. So, okay, Samantha, please do tell us about, remind everyone about your upcoming book, because it is coming out very soon.
The Invention of Sophie Carter comes out July 14th. It's about two sisters who pretend to be the same person to go to the Great Exhibition of 1851. And it's full of hijinks and fun, and there's two suitors who think they're in love with the same person.
Yeah, it's good. And we are doing your Instagram Live book launch for Samantha. Tell them the date.
July 14th.
July 14th. Okay, I'm going to be there.
And Pacific Standard Time.
Nice. Yes, and Trisha Levenseller is also going to be there, and we're going to be talking about Samantha's book. So yes, come join if you're in the mood and you're around.
I've got a quick question. Instagram. Are the sisters twins?
Yes,
in your
they're
book?
identical.
Nice. Love hijinks.
Yeah,
so
it's fun. So yes, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your Saturday. We appreciate you all for coming.
Yeah. Go Austen. Go Persuasion. Yay.
Yay, Persuasion.
All right. Bye,
all right. We'll